Welcome, everybody. We have had a bit of it's my fault. I forgot that yesterday was Memorial Day and nobody was online. And so, very last minute, we decided to, you know, reschedule Monday's real talk session to a new time, sporadic time of 3:30 Eastern Standard Time on a Tuesday, because why the hell not? But I'm super excited and blessed and humbled to be joined by the phenomenally talented Mr. AllOne, all the way from New York City. How are you, my love?
Hello. I'm all right. I'm doing okay. We're trying to make sense of being in the quarantine and rerouting our routines and the brain and expectations and how we interface with each
Seriously.
other without being in our faces. And yeah, it's not easy, but it's good. I feel like I'm constantly asking all the time for more opportunities to work on art and music and whatnot. And now it's like I find it's kind of like a put up or shut up time for a lot of people too.
Oh, I like
And
that. Put up or shut up.
yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's
it's well, because you guys are what? Are you in the same week of quarantine that we are? We're in week 9 now.
yeah. I kind of lost track. It all just kind of feels like a new world
It is a new
sometimes.
world. It is a new world.
But
Take me through your process, like, because you and I did a live stream show the other day,
yeah,
um, with I can't remember the name of the company now. What was the name of the company? This is how
oh no.
brain dead
Oh,
I am.
uh, oh my God. Yeah, I can't think of it
Ack
either.
and Brett from Sound Sessions. No,
Yeah, sound
Sound.
sessions.
Was it Sound Sessions?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
wait.
No,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
this.
this is
This is Real Talk.
terrible.
I don't know. Anyways, so you and like,
No,
because
I'm sorry. It was the sound shop.
the sound show, and you had something to do with sound. Okay.
Sorry, fellas.
Thank you. Teamwork.
It
Yes.
meant much more than that lapse of memory indicates.
Oh my gosh. It's yeah, I feel like last night was my first good sleep in I don't even know how long. So I hear you. So how, because from then till now, I feel
Yeah.
like things have been kind of progressively getting more and more like both productive, but
Mm,
also super kind of nerve-wracking at the same time. Like
sure.
the longer this happens, like great, we've got more opportunities to create and do all this stuff and figure out who we are. But at the same time, it's like when can we go and see humans and hug humans and play
Mm-hmm.
music for humans? That's
Yeah.
kind of my mental process. What's your process looking like?
Um, as as far as like what I'm, how I'm experiencing this, as well as like where I'm at with anticipating change or whatever.
Yeah,
uh,
all of it.
well, one of so the thing about like that whole sort of everyone is kind of thrown into the gauntlet now, and it's a time of almost reckoning of finding out if people are really about what they have been saying they are, if their drive is really what they've been, or if they've been all talk.
Mm,
And I think like that's a lot of pressure now.
hmm
I think there's a lot of different ways to unpack that, but some of it, I think, for me, why I'm feeling anxious is it's kind of like all of a sudden I was laid off from my job, and I just finished up school, so now I have all this time. But like this is all of the time that I've been wanting. It's time enough at last, like the
hmm
Twilight Zone episode, and suddenly like I find myself without my glasses and I can't even read, and it's all I wanted to do. Or I suddenly find myself without the discipline that I thought I had when I was able to just imagine uh, my hyper productive ideal life.
Right.
It seems to me that that's like the case with a lot of people, is they're just kind of finding that, oh, I actually have to work maybe even harder in this time when I can now like carve out a schedule and carve out routines. And I think you and I talked about that when we did the sound shop performance, both before and during, but like the importance of regimenting something to keep you accountable to your both short-term and long-term goals. And I think because we have all this time, what I'm experiencing and what I'm finding a lot of people experiencing is like the advent of a lot of shame or difficulty with the fact that like maybe you're not necessarily as motivated as you thought you were, and or maybe finding out the difficult truth that motivation doesn't exactly equate to passion. You know, like you can be passionate about something, and it seems like you should intrinsically then have the discipline to do it because you desire to do that thing so much and to pursue that goal so much. But I don't think it always shakes out that way. You know, like in the end, like the passions are just another activity that requires your attention and requires your work ethic and requires your focus and your discipline. And it's not just like this mystical thing that you are equipped to do and would just blaze through to all of your ambitious ends if you had the proper time, you know. And now that no one has any excuses, they're finding like, or at least for me, I know, and some other friend, I was just writing a friend about this, is like, you know, just discovering that, well, you actually need to put in actual steps every single day to see these tasks through. You can't just kind of like have this lofty concept of what your desires are creatively or artistically, and they will manifest by the you know, purported magic of what your talent would, you know, bring to bear, you know.
Right.
So so there's that. And as far as quarantine, yeah, I'm eager for it to be over like everybody else, but I also am, of course, aware that I will just wait, and it's fine, and I will FaceTime and I will perform via live streaming as technology has allowed us, which is beautiful. And it's not adequate, it's not a good supplement for the live experience, as you know, I'm sure, and as any performer would know. But it's available to us, and we have all these things to take advantage of. And you know, maybe it takes an opportunity to take some time to yourself and learn what it is to be alone, and learn how to manage your time, and learn to be healthy and exercise and maybe meditate and find all these ways to be okay in both your home and the home of your head, which prior to this, we've had all of the fireworks display of modernity and everything outside of our life to distract us from what it is to just be, you know?
For sure. Thank you for being so honest about your experiences so far. You're getting a lot of love on the live stream. People giving you lots of care hugs and love hearts and things. I think, you hit on some really good points of, you know, not only just being a musician and struggling with how to transition to this point, but also, you know, having to really look at what any field, because any field is like this. How do you find that motivation? How do you find that that dig deep in, you know, the ability to dig deep into your gut, your truth, your why, and figure out like, what's the roadmap now? What does it look like? You know, is the destination still the same thing? Is there a destination now? Like, has that destination that we thought we wanted to get to actually been sideswiped off of the map because because the world's on fire? You know, like, what does it look like? So I guess, I mean, I know from my personal experiences how I'm sort of dealing with that, but have you found any good ways and how to navigate those feelings, or process, or alchemize, is that a word? Kind of like turn those feelings into other feelings?
Yeah, I mean, so some of it I think is just the Buddhist tradition, or axiom of that expectation is suffering, you know, and realizing
Mm.
that I have a friend of mine, an artist and a writer, Cameron, and he said to me in a letter recently, um, not meeting a deadline doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that it took you longer to accomplish the thing than you expected.
Mhm.
So, things like that kind of help me a lot. Like shifting the goal, like shifting your expectations to maybe just what's more realistic for that moment,
Mhm.
or um, there's kind of a trick of when you're going to get into an endeavor, the best way to start, I think, is to imagine it and to pursue it the way it would be easiest for you, as opposed to making it this grandiose, sort of insurmountable series of tasks or things. Like let's say you wanted to start a Patreon, and you like just think of like what would make that doable and manageable, and then you can build up from there where there's the least resistance. You can
Yeah.
build up from there, because the thing is have you want to be able to, at least you have to have a positive experience of these things. You need to have some level of accomplishment. It's actually like it's kind of idiotic and not necessarily like commendable, even though we think it is, to set the bar so high that we never reach it, but then to always be like, yeah, look at how high my bar is set. Look how high my expectations are set. Isn't that amazing? It's like, well, actually it'd be more impressive if you knew what your limits were and then set your expectations appropriately, and then actually accomplish things. And perhaps doing that, then you could, you know, build yourself up to where, okay, now I'm at the intermediate level of the
Mhm.
difficulty of, how I set my routines for each day, or what my goals and accomplishments were meant to be, right? So then you kind of, it's like Milo, what's his name? Oh my God. My roommate actually made a shirt about this. Is basically the idea that like you gradually increase your strength or your dexterity or whatever, any
Mhm.
attribute that you need. You just do this gradually, and so over time, then what was your ceiling yesterday hopefully would not be your ceiling in a year. It's just
Mhm.
like how you make that process of growth, or how you if you can make it a manageable process of activities for yourself, it'll both be more gratifying. You'll accomplish more, even if it seems like the goals are slightly smaller along the way. Like you will
Mhm.
actually have reached those things. And so I kind of, little tricks like that. Sometimes it's just like semantic changes about how you look at things, and other times it's actually really granular, um, like adjustments into how you're treating your everyday activities, like that really kind
Mhm.
of help you more smoothly get to the end of those things.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, I think setting realistic expectations that are healthy for you, so that you develop a healthy relationship to the activities you're in. Because I mean, we want to enjoy this ride, right? It's not
Totally.
like it's we like to talk about how art is suffering, and we like to talk about how like the starving artist, and we like to talk about like how difficult things were, but no one, you don't want to live that way necessarily. Like
For
ideally you
sure. For
wouldn't.
sure.
You
Yeah,
know, ideally all the greatest artists wouldn't have to go through, the deepest depressions and the debauchery just to deal with it, right? So maybe try to imagine something that's healthier for you, and then it will be, I think that's like the long game, right? Like that's longevity, not just burning
yeah.
out in a, there's a romanticism about burning yourself out, especially in our like
Oh,
hyper
yeah.
yeah, like our hyper productive capitalist mentality. There's a romanticism about burning yourself out, but there's nothing useful, and that gets old very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I've been obviously talking to a lot of people during this quarantine via the Real Talk podcast, but also by, you know, reaching out to a whole bunch of mentors in my life
Mm-hmm.
and coaches and things. And one of the things that I learned, not learned, I cemented in my brain a couple of
Mm-hmm.
things. You've touched on being realistic, and I think that's really important. The SMART goal system is good. It's good. It's there for a purpose, right? Being
Mm.
specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and you know, timely. I think is the T.
Mm.
But one of the other things that I think we, especially as creatives, when we're constantly shifting our expectations for ourselves and um, trying to navigate the twists and turns about what it means to be an indie artist, what it means to be able to make money from art and solely rely on that and then have that all taken away because of a worldwide pandemic.
Mm.
Um, you know, what does that look like? And how do we make sure that we are not just physically safe, but also mentally and emotionally safe?
Yeah.
And one of the things that he touched on was the importance of one, gratitude. What are the things, every day or every night or whatever, waking up or going to bed and writing down things that you're grateful for. And I've literally been doing this for the last, I don't know, 2 weeks, and it's made such a huge difference in my mental health. But another
Sure.
thing that he touched on was um, celebrations, right?
Mm.
Like recognizing what your wins are. And I know as artists specifically, it's really hard for us to celebrate our wins,
Yeah, I can't even take a compliment. Never mind
right?
celebrate a win.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
off the cuff, I want you to tell me three things that you are celebrating or that you're winning at this week.
So I'm going to be putting out a second single from a forthcoming album that I have going on
Oh,
Friday.
no.
So that
You have a
feels,
forthcoming album coming out?
yeah, an album next month. Ideally, if everything works out.
That's
we
amazing.
we got a
Okay.
little bit derailed by this whole thing, but I'm trying to make it work.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I have a full length album coming out next month. I'm just gonna say that it is, and I'm gonna work towards that. I'm
Oh,
not
it's
gonna
going to
say it
happen.
maybe, right?
Totally going to happen.
So yeah, so I have that. That's, I mean, this, not to suck up, but this is an accomplishment. I feel like doing this. It's a really nice thing to be able to do. So thanks for having me.
Oh,
Um,
boy, please.
yeah, the
Of
single on
course.
Friday, I'm very proud of. I'm very excited about.
Tell
And
us about the single.
So it's called Heart Sinking. Um, Sinking, as in synchronized, as well as descending. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and because everything with me has to have multiple meanings.
Of course.
Uh, and it's produced by my friends, Conscious Robot. They're like a brother team of producers and instrumentalists. And then I rap on it, and then my friend Sam Raya from a local band from around here called Nectar, she sings on the chorus. And it's just a song about the difficulty of letting go of people, and the difficulty in understanding the difference between someone's enthusiasm and your connection to them,
Hmm.
and just kind of I guess the nuances of love, and how it can be hard sometimes to
Hmm.
recognize that, like, love does not hold tight, so tight that the other person cannot breathe. People, I think there's a lot of codependency in the modern understanding, or in the, like, overall, like, portrayal of love. And there's like, the whole kind of horrible incel sort of internet society of like the idea of involuntary celibate. So it's like a very misogynistic thing of people that
Mm.
don't necessarily understand boundaries, or how passion and interrelating works. Um and it also just, it's got those things in mind, and also just my previous experiences with the wilting of a relationship, and how difficult that can be sometimes to understand, like, how that happens, and why, and that it's okay, and not to, like, claw after someone, and just to, like, have a more honorable on both sides of it,
Mm.
sort of walking away in a supportive sort of way.
Hmm.
um and it's also a sister song of sorts from an album I did in 2016. So it kind of follows in the footsteps, in homage to that song called Zoned Out, um, about the whole kind of like friend zone myth and whatnot.
The friend
Um,
zone myth.
yeah,
I think I know that. So you've got a song about friend zoning, right?
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
song. Yeah, I know that
I did
song.
it at yeah, I did it at Sound Shop. Um, so you probably heard it then.
Nope, I remember it from the very first time I met you.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the very first time that you and I shared a stage together, and you
Yes,
did
yeah.
a song on friend zoning, and I was like,
Mm.
"Yo, this guy gets it."
Yeah, yeah.
That,
So I'm kind
yeah,
of yeah revisiting that whole thing a little bit from some new angles. I always kind of feel like if I'm writing a song or if I'm going through a thing, I kind of use the song as a way to exercise that and articulate that experience so I can kind of get it out of me and maybe share the
hmm
before, the during, and even maybe the after if I can be objective and learned or wise enough. And that becomes how, like, a lot of times that's how I write songs, is like I have an experience and then I try to go through the whole thing in a journalistic way and then refine that down into songwriting.
yeah.
Um,
No, I do the same thing. Completely. It's one of those like it's like a your personal diary almost, or
mm-hmm.
journal, or whatever you call them in this country.
Yeah, and then you just kind of wring that out through the cheesecloth of the rules that songwriting asks you to provide, or to
Totally,
adhere to. Um,
totally. But and then you get to share that with the world.
yeah, and hopefully, if it helped you to write it, it helps people to hear it.
Yeah, for real.
That's
So tell me more about this upcoming single you've got.
mm. So I mean that's a lot of it. I I feel unfortunately because of everything going on, I wasn't able to do like a video or anything, but we're gonna do like a little animated album art sort of video, put it on my YouTube page, and um, I'm gonna put it up on Bandcamp with all the lyrics and whatnot, so you can pour over everything that I obsessed
hmm
obsessed over
hmm
writing and all that. Um, and that'll be out on Friday. Um, and yeah, I feel good about it. It's the second one from the record, and I think the album is going to have like 12 songs.
Oh wow.
Uh,
So it's like
yeah,
a legit album.
so it's like a full length thing, which is the first full length project I've put out since 2016. So it's been a while coming.
That's cool.
Um, but yeah, it's been cool. The guys who make the music, it's very sort of progressive in a way. They're kind of pushing my writing and my delivery and cadences in a lot of directions.
hmm
I feel like I'm sort of at a sort of apex. I mean, you always want to think that you're at your peak, right? Whether or not you are is a different story. But I guess it's all subjective. But I feel like lately my thing has been try to toe the line of a sort of intellectual rigor in my writing and a sort of experimental delivery and just the execution of the stuff from a technical standpoint, but also not lose any of the emotion along the way.
Mm.
I think like a lot of times very technical writing or music or whatever can seem devoid of feeling, and I think a lot of times also like a lot of stuff that's just going for pure feel can feel sort of bereft of the more exciting things from a technical or academic kind of standpoint, whether it's from a musical perspective or like a lyric perspective or whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm always trying to marry the two, and I think I don't know if I'm ever perfectly in the center of the Venn diagram, but
hmm
I try to get there, and I think sometimes it may be too overwrought, and other times, you know, I'm just trying to like let go of a lot of, like everything we think is good is just an invented thing, right? Like our opinions are just kind of like an invented expectation of like how music should be or how our music should be, and we
Totally.
tend to write whatever it might be, right? Like a chord progression or a lyric or the way we choose to make melodies or just showcase our skills in a song. Like all of the rules that we apply to ourselves are completely just biases that we've signed up for in our own head of like, well, this is what makes a song good, so I just try to get to that. And I
Right.
think it's important every once in a while to be like, well, you just think that, you know. It doesn't necessarily mean that. That's why some people don't like your music, right? Is because they don't feel the same about what you find to be quality, because everything in art is subjective. So I think that's the thing, is like you always should be challenging yourself, right? And just push
Absolutely.
yourself, whether it's, I mean, there is no vertical progress. Maybe it's all maybe lateral. I mean, you could get better at a thing, but maybe if you peak in a certain, if you feel like you've reached a peak of a skill, then like go laterally and like acquire a new skill and incorporate that into your work, right? And that's kind of like
1000%. So
like,
how are
oh,
you
maybe,
going into this week, challenging yourself laterally?
ooh, that's a great question. Oh man, I mean, honestly, I feel like some days I'm just challenging myself to get out of my lateral position in bed and be upright and longitudinal. uh, and
Valid,
yeah.
totally valid.
But I mean, so I, it's weird. Like not every day is art centered. I'm trying to finish recording these last bits for the album, and last week I hit a sort of rut. It took me, I think I made a Facebook post about it, but I was kind of working on the same verse for like 3 days, just like recording and just not finding the right nuances, and just going back and editing the words down to different syllables, and like, you know,
Hmm.
the slightest changes, you know, that probably no one else would notice, but you know, you got to be okay with it, right?
Of course,
Before you
of
let it
course.
out. And sometimes maybe you just need to let it go. But so I'm really trying to have a very much more regimented, regular schedule around finishing recording the remains of the material for the album. There's maybe like 3 songs that I need to finish tracking and send out to my engineer.
Hmm.
And so I'm gonna try to treat that as like my day job, basically. You know, like okay,
Totally.
I clock in at this time, and I you know, take a break at a certain point and revisit what I'm doing. And because last week was the first week that I didn't have school, so
Hmm.
you know, I had my first foray into that endeavor, and now this week I'm like, okay, I learned a little bit from my experience. I didn't quite get what I was hoping to get out of the time I was spending working, and you know, I'm gonna come back at it with these new sort of strategies. With maybe when I'm having trouble with something, maybe put it down, either walk away or just work on something else. And this way, I
Hmm.
can at least like add another couple percent, you know, to the other thing. Um, just working and filling different buckets until I'm happy with where everything is. So
Can I
um,
tell you a secret?
yeah, please do.
There is more to you than being an artist.
Oh, you're right.
No, the reason I say that is because like the very first thing you said was, well, you know, it's not always about being artistic. I'm like, good. There is, and this is one of the things that I think a lot of artists kind of, or people in general,
Mm,
place a lot of importance on what they do, that they forget who they are,
sure. Yeah.
right? And I was having a conversation about this last night, and this morning, and uh, one of the things that really struck a chord with me is like everyone's going around looking for their soulmate. Nobody
Mm,
recognizes their own soul because your
yeah.
soul isn't in what you do. You
Right. Right.
communicate your soul through what we do because we're lucky that we
Right.
have such an such a creative outlet for our spiritual health.
Mm,
But there is so much more to you than sometimes just getting vertical in the morning is all you
yeah.
need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be human.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And like I'm going to, like, I've been going on walks a lot, and I've been doing things that are good for me, and like getting into meditation outside or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that that's a big, I think I mean, I mentioned it before, and a friend of mine recently connected the idea to me, my friend Jolie, talking about um, just the idea that like, yeah, in especially it's a very capitalist thing, but just to like identify your value. And there's a lot of, I think, memes going on, kind of being popular right now about this. So
Hmm.
I suppose it is a shared experience, for sure. But just people talking about like, hey, you're allowed to have a day off, and like the days that you don't make things, you're still valuable. You can just be, right. Which I think is an important point.
Mm.
Um, of course, my immediate thing is to just think of the caveat of, well, yeah, but also don't use this like mental health thing as a crutch to just loaf around either. Like, there is, you definitely need to find some medium, some sort of like middle ground situation where,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you understand, like, yes, you need to have the equanimity, like you said, like you need to have the soul of yourself, the sort of feeling of value intrinsically, not just in frantically chasing after whatever your goal is that day.
Can I ask, because you talked about, you're now scheduling and your
Mm,
work days as work
yeah.
days, like this is when you have lunch, this is when you write, this is when you record, whatever. Are you also scheduling in times for, like, this is when I call my mother, this is when
Yeah.
I meditate, this is when I do my 20 push-ups?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
are you doing that as well?
So I tend not to do things in like a chronological scheduling. I tend to, on my better day, and maybe I would be helped by that for sure, but I tend to just kind of make a to-do list, and then I
Hmm.
just kind of like knock things out, and it will be everything from something as banal as wash the dishes or call so and so, to like finish recording song, like
Mm.
write and ship the letter or mail out the merch or whatever it is. So I do like down to the like eat breakfast, like reach out to so like friend or whatever it is. Like I do make sure that I try to hold myself accountable to all those things, and reach out, uh, to try to reach all of those sort of different layers and levels of fulfillment and
Mm.
activity. So yeah, I do. But like I said, I know you have a very meticulously planned scheduling system from what
Not that
you've
I
shown
always,
me.
not that I always abide by it, let's be real.
Sure, sure.
But by and large, yeah, I tend to, and I think part of that is because I know that if I don't have that there, then I'm likely to get too stuck in
Mm-hmm.
writing music or too stuck in editing the podcast or
Yeah,
too
yeah.
stuck in, talking to Joe Blogs
Mm-hmm.
about saving a pot plant that I can't seem to resurrect back to life. These are struggles I have, I'm just saying.
Sure, sure.
um, or just going for long missions and because I walking and running and cycling make me happy. But
Yeah.
yeah, but for me, it's like I very much so scheduling. This is when I'm having breakfast. This is when I'm having my vocal lessons. This is when I'm peeing. you know,
Yeah.
so that
This way
or
you don't
making a
end
cup of
up in
tea.
there for too long.
Right, right. The
Doing
struggle's
the
real,
down
y'all.
the YouTube rabbit hole while you sit squatted and your legs fall asleep. Can't be having that.
Especially if I was in China, it would be horrendous. But get it because the squatting toilets, yeah, they
Yes.
legitimately squat. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess for me, doing the whole having that schedule there just helps me keep myself accountable during this really unknown, insecure time
Yeah.
for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not everybody's jam. Sometimes, some of the people in the Capital Groove Collective look at my schedule and go, fuck no.
Yeah, yeah.
That is not my thing. That stresses them out, and that's cool. To-do lists, I don't often have like a certain thing that I can look at all the time, be like, oh, that's my to-do list for tomorrow.
Sure.
Although I just invested in a whiteboard, so maybe that'll help. But yeah. So how are you making sure that your soul is healthy and happy?
Oh boy. Uh, um,
The real
Just
questions, come on.
all right, real quick, real quick. Oh yeah, the lightning round. Yeah,
No,
no,
no, no, it doesn't have to be quick.
no, I'm
You take
kidding, I'm
your
kidding.
time, take your time.
No, I mean, really just making sure like I'm spending time with the people that I'm happy to where available, like I'm happy that like I'm not quarantined away from my significant other. um that is helpful. I make sure to like on my best days, like again, these are like the ideal conditions, but
Hmm.
I'm doing some exercising every day. I'm making sure even when I'm being really productive, let's say doing music, and that does overjoy me.
Hmm.
I also know that I will feel like some of the day was squandered as a human animal if I don't go outside, as even
Hmm.
if it's not that great out, just making sure I go get some fresh air and some sunlight and not, stay inside all day.
Yeah.
Making sure, that if I'm feeling weird, I reach out and articulate that to people in
Hmm.
some way, and that I don't that I'm just having genuine interactions. I'm playing a lot of board games. I'm play my lady and I are big like game fans, and my roommates as well. So we're doing a lot of board game playing, and
That's
a
cool.
lot of just chatting and talking and cooking more and all this stuff. So kind of really getting down to the simple heart of things, like when the power goes out, it's kind of like the social power went out in some way,
Hmm.
in the world, and so it's like, well, we're hunkered around the candlelight in some sense, the candlelight of our the glow of our Zoom screens, and our FaceTime, uh,
Yeah, yeah,
the,
for
the
real.
blue halo of the FaceTime, and yeah, so just keeping as healthily social but socially distant, and making food and listening to music and playing games and things like that, which I enjoy a lot, and
Hmm.
um, doing those things more often, and making sure even to say like, hey, let's do this later, like let's, I'm reading a lot. My lady and I like we'll like pick a book and then we'll read together and exchange passages that we read out loud, and just things like that really keep me kind of feeling connected and in touch with some sense of humanity and culture, even if it's not immediate right
Hmm.
there. So
Mm.
those things are keeping me sort of fulfilled and warm and surviving.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to really like remind ourselves of those things and
Yeah,
keep that, keep that at the forefront, but also keep growing that, the fact that
yes,
we've got this time to write and create as well, I think is really beautiful. And this is really an opportunity for, people like us, like anybody who has been so stuck in the Western world of work, 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 work,
mm-hmm,
work,
yeah,
for us to like really take pause and recognize um, what we actually, who we are as human beings. You know,
yes,
I think it's a really great opportunity, scary opportunity, but
yeah,
but a great opportunity. And it sounds like you're, as much as you're talking about how unsettling it is, um, you've still got a great deal of strength and resilience in you and the way that you're talking about these struggles. So if I was wearing a hat right now, I would take it off to you, sir, for sure. So just a couple more questions before we wrap up.
sure, sure,
Um, it's well, first of all, your single is coming out on Friday.
yeah.
Where can people look for it?
So that'll be on, for now, it'll just be on allonevoice.bandcamp.com,
Hmm.
and also youtube.com slash allonevoice.
Okay,
And
cool.
yeah, I'm not going to do the full sort of streaming release yet, but
Okay,
I think I'll save that for the full length. But yeah,
okay.
that's where you can get that stuff.
Great. And when it comes to, oh, I did have a question for you. What is
Sure.
your favorite? Because, I don't know if you still describe yourself as this, but I describe you as like an intellectual hip hop artist, right?
Sure, sure.
Um, because what you write about is very intricate, very thought provoking. Do you have a favorite line or a favorite verse that you
Mm.
have written that's like, yo, that was whack. That was so many levels of epic that I don't.
Oh man. It's probably it's funny. Thank you. Yeah, it's probably stuff the material from the new project which is called Emotionauts. I think you should always kind of feel like the newest stuff is the best stuff.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it might be back to the drawing board and try to
Right.
reinvent yourself and raise the ceiling a little higher. But yeah, I think some of my favorite material that I'm writing right now is on this record. And there's a quote from a chorus of a song which you can actually watch a performance with me and my buddy Kavi. The song's called Left Field Day, and I don't know that it's my best line or anything, but my pen pal, I was just reading a letter from him, and he quoted the line, and it's in the chorus, and it is I say, you know a dreamer by how much they got up through the night, when the top of the morning to you feels like bottom of the ninth. And it's a song, about being an artist and about being a weirdo and all that. And just for me, that two lines kind of really sums up the experience of what it is to be an insatiable creative and an
Yeah.
artist. And I think, like, at least for the relevance of our discussion, that's kind of that feels like a sort of anthemic statement and a sort of thesis in a very curt way, which obviously based on my music and this conversation, I'm not good at being curt, and I'm not good at being truncating my words. But yeah, I would say that constantly dreaming, constantly sleepless, and feeling like the second we wake up, you might be assailed by the feeling of like, whoa, it's on,
Hmm.
like you feel the lightning of your life surging through you, and the responsibility to use it wisely or interestingly. And that's kind of feels like the zeitgeist right now. It kind of feels like where we're at, um,
Hmm.
and where I've spent a lot of my time in my life. So I'd say that one right now is one I'm particularly feeling. um,
It's that I like that. I like that a
Thanks.
lot. I think it's yeah. Thank you for sharing, and thank you
Sure.
for being again so open and vulnerable with me and with whoever's watching at the moment. I we've you've gotten a lot of love, so I feel like it's an important
Oh,
lesson that you know when we lead with vulnerability, we've got this massive idea that being vulnerable is being weak, but there's
mm,
such strength behind, allowing yourself to be seen and heard
yes.
because it allows other people to be seen and heard in turn. And that is what community is all about in my eyes.
Yes.
Um, that we need to put down these facades of everything's gonna be fine, mate. Like everything's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
cool. To be like, actually, things are a little bit scary, and that's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay to feel how we feel, and it's okay to talk about how we're feeling. My cat has just entered the studio. Whoa.
Oh,
Okay.
beautiful.
um, that's been my lifesaver
Yeah,
during
grab
this
a cat.
pandemic.
Get a cat.
Well, I don't have, I don't have the ability to live with my partner, so
Mm.
we will suffice with having kitty cat cuddles in the morning.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, and for
Of
everyone
course.
who's watched and listened, and everything you've been sharing, and your music and the podcast and the wisdom of other people that you've kind of amassed in this project so far. I'm finding it, even when I'm just catching a glimpse of it, if I'm not engaging 100%, admittedly, like I'm finding it as usual with your mission and your work and what you're doing to be very galvanizing and to be very encouraging and inspiring. So really, thank you, Emma. It's good. It's a good thing to know you. It's a good thing to have what you're doing in my orbit of awareness, because it's helping. So kudos to
I'm
you for that.
I'm humbled. Thank you. That means a lot, and I'm glad. Like one of the things. in my previous life, I was a youth empowerment coordinator for the YMCA,
Mm.
and one of the sort of sayings, I guess, that kind of culminated in my heart very, very quickly was, if you can't see the light, be the light. The
Mm.
change begins with us, you
Yeah.
know. And likewise, I'm blessed to know wonderful humans like yourself that help me stay inspired and stay on my mission, because I feel like there's so many of us wanting to change the world in a positive way,
Yeah.
that we sometimes lose track. And so being able to glimpse over to your Instagram or your Facebook or your whatever, Twitter, just helps reignite that flame of like, oh yeah, there's more of us out there. We're
Yes.
like the Avengers. We just haven't found each other yet.
Yes.
But no, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much to AllOne. If you want to keep in touch with AllOne, as he mentioned, allonevoice.bandcamp.com, AllOne on Twitter, AllOne Voice
Yes.
on Facebook. That's, sorry, all one, not all, that's my accent coming out there. And you've got a YouTube channel as well, which is,
Yeah, it's YouTube. I use AllOne Voice as
okay.
pretty much every handle and everything. So yeah, youtube.com/AllOneVoice.
And do you have a Patreon as well?
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't pulled that trigger yet.
Okay. I've recently resurrected mine, and it's keeping me busy, but I love it.
I was
It's
gonna
great.
say.
Cool. Great, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to spread love like it's going out of fashion. Be your own kind of superhero. And please, please do not forget to call your mum.
You are your own.